This is Hallicrafters Rehabs. Welcome back. What you're looking at is the construction site for the back of my house. This is formerly a porch, and we're going to enclose it in, and it's going to be a shop, shack, and studio. SSS. And so it'll be built pretty much like a ship's gallery because we only have like 120 square feet to work with here, but that will be enough. I got a really great builder, is a friend of ours, and actually that's about the only way you can get good builders right now is to know somebody. And he's a cut above. We decided we'd do this pillar construction. It's pretty uncommon in North Carolina. The two edge beams there, 1 foot beams or whatever they are over a footing, and then we're going to put a center beam, but it actually won't be carrying that much load because it's all on trusses, and so all of that comes down the side columns. This is what I mean by a good builder. This is the wood from their own. All of it is what was purchased, except what's being used in this floor system, and all of that's being returned because it's not straight. A quick and fast builder might use that wood, and I don't know if you would know the difference, but Jeff knows the difference. And when you call in an order, they just pick it right off the top, and it's already been gone through. So it's all going back because it's already been gone through a second time. But that won't be a big problem. And then we're just waiting for the final touches on the inspection on that pillar. And then the deck will go in. And I'll have a deck even while it's under construction. Yes. Let me move this bucket here. It's kind of in the way. We've already gotten the ground put in for this side. There will be a conduit that comes up from here that feeds all the antennas and the RF ground wire, and that will be the system for bringing it in. Plus we'll be bonding this with the other rod and my existing antenna rod, and all of that grounding and house ground on this side. And then up here we can just walk right over here. See, I'd originally planned to put the vertical antenna next to the house, but the Homeowners Association had something to say about that. Now, here in Carter Estates in Thomasville, the homeowner's estate is my wife, June Carter, Garu. And she is not going to allow a 47-foot tower right next to the house. This is hidden by some trees, at least for her. And we've got the ground in and the footing set. And this will have a hinge. This is actually a structural pole that will have a hinge, and the actual, at least 2, maybe 3 10-foot poles will be steel like this one, and there will be the mast for the antenna to attach. It'll be one of those 27-foot multi-band vertical antennas. There won't be any guy wires required with this structure, which will be good since I have to mow. So that's at least the plan for the transmitter antenna. And there's another view for the house. And we'll go inside now. What you're looking at is, on my right, your left, is a Hallicrafters HT37, which is partly, but not wholly, the object of this project. It has not been turned on, it has not been touched, and as you saw in the marquee, or the start of this video, I just this Saturday passed the general exam for amateur radio general exam, and so I'm qualified for high frequency transmission. Now, I suppose I could restore this thing without a license and prove it works through a dummy load, but there's still a question of legal operation of it even then, because what if there's stray RF going on, because it needs some adjustment in its inside. And so basically I didn't even think about restoring this thing until I had an amateur radio license which would cover the use of this transmitter. And that's a lot of the time since my last video has been in studying for that general term, general license, well, technician first and then general. It was basically, the system is pretty straightforward. They give you a book, you memorize the questions in the book, and then you take the test. They talk about a calculator, but I have never had to use a calculator up to now. And when I took the technician, they offered the general. I said, why not? And I came close, but didn't pass. Then same thing, when I passed the general, they offered the extra, and I didn't come close on that. But there was nothing there that required a calculator. So I don't even plan to take one when I go back for the extra. The whole point behind it was really to study different things that I don't normally look at, since I'm locked into the 20th century with tube stuff. For the most part, I do some solid state things, but there's a whole lot of different kinds of things that amateur radio is into, particularly in the digital area, that I probably won't get into unless I'm with other people that are doing it or something like that. But at least I'll have the license for it. I really, really recommend. Now this is like my safety briefing for all of the videos that will be associated with restoring this Hallicrafters transmitter. I'm hoping to have nearly all. Obviously, this is an exception, this Japan radio, but a nearly all Hallicrafters shack. But it won't be. There'll be some modern things that you just can't ignore that will make things better, like sound processing and speakers and things like that. Are really fabulous technology out there. And maybe I might even put a speech processor before but we'll see. Right now, we'll just get this thing up and running, and then we'll see. if we need to do anything else, because I'm not likely to be much of a DXer. I'm just more likely to have conversations and things like that. But the safety part is, just with this, it develops 100 watts. And it uses 3 amps, which tells you that it is pulling 3 amps times 120 volts, 360 AC. Average power when it's running, solid. We haven't talked about duty cycle. 360 watts to develop 1 watt, 100 watts. Kind of tells you what the efficiency of transmitters are, at least in those days. If I ever get a linear amplifier, which is a possibility, they would not be a Hallicrafters, because I don't want to work on them. I don't want to work on it. The reason is thousands of volts. Just think those terms, thousands of volts in linear amplifiers. The linear amplifier, if I do get one, has 2 16 amp fuses in parallel in the 120 AC line. Now what's that for? That's for inrush. And you don't put a little inrush current limiter that you put in these receivers in this. This is full of iron, and it weighs 80 pounds. And the linear amplifier is full of iron. They've gotten better in the technology in the past 60 years. But still, all of that is current, and lots of it, and plenty available when you turn it on. So I'll have a long talk with the electrician before he does his rough in and estimate out there. Pretty much going to have at least one 20 amp circuit out to the shack, and probably 2, but because it may just be easier to do it that way than to try and do it any other way. And then so you really have to know what you're doing in working with transmitters. I was watching OG, KE0OG. He's got a YouTube channel, and it's pretty interesting. In fact, I took some notes somewhere around here, but yeah, here they are. Interesting thing about this is developing 100 watts PEP, peak envelope power. You're going to start learning some things like that. Kind of like an average power. Duty cycle is important because if you're doing single sideband, it's not 100% power all the time. All AMs know that. But the miracle of radio is rather interesting. He talked about this, and I've carried it a little further than what he said. So when I do these receivers, this is the Mark 1D. Let me pull out the SX71. Well, that wasn't a good example either. I don't know what happened to my SX100 notebook. There it is. They all need to be in the same place, don't they? Okay, so in here, in my data sheets, so we're looking at typical minimum discernible signals in the range of, 110, 108 on the medium wave band, as good as 130, negative 110 dBm, and negative 130 dBm at the sweet spot of 40 meters or 7,000 kilohertz. I keep this on my phone all the time. I don't know why, but it's so cool. That's why. It's a table of dBm versus power versus voltage peak to peak. Can't use this in my exam. Boy, I wish I could. wera.cen.uni/Hamburg. Well, okay. Let's just go there. .de. So I was looking at minus 130. So the wattage on that associated with it is 1 times 10 to the minus 15 watts. That is 0.001 picowatt. Am I really? 0.0, that's watts, 0.0001 picowatts, minus 130 dB. And then at 110 on AM, it's 100 times more than that, right? 100 times is just 20 dB. That's one of those things for my exam I had to remember. Anyway, so 0.01 picowatts. And this develops 100 watts. So 100 watts is 50 dB. So your ratio, I'm not going to do all that math. That's too much for me. I'm getting old. But if China Radio International has transmitters that are pumping out 500,000 kilowatts, that's 103 dB. So the difference between what this SX100 can pick up and what they're pumping out is 232 dB. I can't even do the math of what the percentage of the output from a transmitter. And let me say, when China radio is in the morning, it's the sunrise sunset path from China to here. And if the antenna is pointed in our direction, it's a pretty good signal. It's maybe S3, S4, S5, sometimes S9. But it can be barely discernible if it's pointed in another direction, which is another issue, which is called directionality of antennas. Some directional antennas can give like 100 to 1 in gain, and the to 1 applies to when they have their antennas pointed in another direction. All that to say is these receivers can pick up really, really, really small signals. And it's nothing unique about this. It's the way they're designed. And yet that is how hams are able to communicate around the world. It's not how much power they're pumping out. The linear amplifier is probably not even necessary if you have a good antenna system and a good ground system, and you do the best you can to eliminate noise. That is probably the biggest thing that impacts your ability to communicate. So, at any rate, it's a miracle of radio that so little is all that is necessary to have a conversation around the world or to hear a station. on the other side of the earth. And we're getting into a great sunspot cycle. Just the other day, the Malaysia radio TV was coming in as strong as I've heard it in 5 years. Still not, sit back and listen to it, capable, but more than barely discernible by far. So, there's a lot to do. I'll be building the antenna system. I'm now looking at how to do switching is a big issue, because I want to keep my shortwave antenna, but that has nothing to do with the transmitter and receive antenna, which these two will be working with. And I have to make the decision that really, when I'm doing the conversation on the amateur radio, I really need to isolate everything else so they don't get toasted by some stray RF in the shack, and which gets to grounding everything to a single point in the shack and bringing the ground out to the outside external 8-foot rods. So there's a lot of issues that have to be resolved, a lot of design that I'm looking at, and we are building it just in time. As the shack goes up, we're ready to do the next step. And so that's really been pretty much where I've been, and appreciate your patience. And we'll take a real careful look inside, and we'll actually I'll try to do some discussion about each circuit. If you just understood well, the manual to this thing is very detailed and shows exactly how the circuits work. And you look inside the exam book in for the general class, and I'm sure for the extra too. I haven't gotten the extra book yet. Did no studying for the extra exam when I took it. I just hoped I could finesse it, but no chance of that. But we'll go into the concepts of each of these things as we go through and check and service each part and every place in it. I will probably do a lot less refurbishment, if you want to call it that, on this, other than just recapping. It may be recapped, but I'm not sure I'll be happy with the recapping if I see it. And replacing resistors out of tolerance will probably be the two big items on this. Unless something is, we'll check it as best we can and clean it and all that kind of stuff, but don't want to seriously in the first restore of a transmitter. I don't want to introduce any of my own mistakes into the process. So that's where we are. Hoping you're having a blessed Memorial Day. Pray for India. The pandemic is subsiding some, but there's been some, none of my friends, but there's been some of their dear ones that fell victim to the pandemic. And so this is Hallicrafters Rehabs, and thanks for the new subscribers, and thanks for watching.